When you're thinking about adding a commercial ice maker to a bar, CAF, or small restaurant, the first question that pops up is usually the same. Will this machine actually fit into my workflow, or am I just buying a noisy, space-eating appliance that I'll regret later? I get that hesitation because I've spent a lot of time reading product specs, watching setup videos, and scrolling through forums where owners talk about what works and what doesn't. My goal here is to give you a straightforward picture of how the VEVOR 400L per day ice maker behaves once it's plugged in, so you can decide if it really lines up with your needs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the environment this machine is built for. A 400-pound daily output and a 300-pound stainless steel storage bin place this unit squarely in the high-volume tier. That means you're looking at a piece of equipment that expects to be feeding a constant stream of ice to a busy bar line, a catering operation, or a hotel breakfast buffet. If you only need a few bags of ice a night, the capacity quickly becomes overkill and the footprint can feel wasteful. The unit itself measures roughly the size of a large upright freezer, and it needs a dedicated 110V or 220V line, a reliable water supply, and a level floor. For many owners, the biggest upfront hurdle is finding a spot where the machine can sit without blocking traffic, while still being close enough to the point of service so staff aren't hauling ice across the kitchen every few minutes. Installation is pretty straightforward if you have basic plumbing experience. The water inlet connects to a standard garden hose style fitting, and the drain hose can be routed to a floor drain or a nearby sink. What you'll notice during the first few hours is the machine's self-cleaning cycle kicking in automatically. VEVOR markets this as auto self-cleaning, and in practice it runs a short wash of water through the internal chiller and then pauses, giving the system a chance to flush out any mineral buildup. For operators who don't have time to schedule deep cleaning sessions, that feature can shave several minutes off routine maintenance. It's not a substitute for a full manual cleaning every few weeks, but it does reduce the frequency of those more intensive chores. The touchscreen control panel is where the machine tries to make life easier. You can set the production mode, adjust the ice size. It defaults to a standard cube that works well in most drinks, and start a manual purge if you ever notice an odd taste. The interface is bright enough to read from across a busy prep area, and the menu is limited to essential commands, which helps prevent accidental changes. One practical note: the panel does not have a lock function, so curious staff or kids can accidentally hit clean and temporarily stop ice production. If you're in a high-traffic environment, it's worth training a couple of people on the basics and maybe covering the panel when the machine is not in use. Now let's talk about the actual ice output. In real-world tests, the unit reaches its peak production of roughly 400 pounds within a 24-hour cycle, but the ramp-up time is important. The first batch of cubes appears after about 15-20 minutes, and the machine continues to churn out fresh ice at a steady rate. For a bar that serves 200 drinks a night, you'll see the bin filling up nicely and staying full through peak hours. The stainless steel storage bin is heavily insulated, which means the ice stays solid for a longer period even if you experience a power hiccup. In a small CAF that only needs a few bags per day, you might end up with a half-full bin most of the time, which translates into wasted energy keeping ice cold when you don't need it. Energy consumption is another hidden trade-off. Because the machine runs a large compressor continuously to maintain the bin temperature, the electric bill will reflect that. For businesses that are already paying for other heavy-duty kitchen equipment, this extra draw can be absorbed, but a startup or a location with tight utility costs should factor it into the operating budget. The unit does have a decent insulation rating, so once the ice is produced, the bin doesn't demand as much power to keep the ice frozen. But the initial cooling phase is where the biggest draw occurs. Noise is often an overlooked factor in commercial kitchens. The compressor and water pump generate a low hum that you'll hear when you stand right next to the machine. It's not a high-pitched whine, but in a quiet CAF setting it can be noticeable. Bars with louder ambient music usually don't register this as a problem, but if your space relies on a calm atmosphere, you might need to position the ice maker a few feet away from the seating area. So, who should walk away with a VEVOR 400-pound ice maker, and who should keep looking? If you run a bar that sees steady traffic from early evening until close, a catering service that needs